Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We're back in order again, and our next submitter is going to be Storm Robertson. Welcome, Storm. If you could come up to the table, please, and you may bring your coffee. So, according to our schedule, your first submission is the one from yourself personally. And so you have 5 minutes. Use it how you like, but we suggest you emphasise the key points you would like the committee to focus on. So,
okay. So you will find some similarities in both of my submissions, but I'll try and identify the separations as they come about. So the first one, this is my submission, and in general, I'm in agreement with the speed changes. I just feel that in uniformity's sake, we should move to make sure that areas are the same and the definitions are the same. The last thing we want to have is a whole lot of changeable speed zones in a small area that's Martinborough, and find that it's confusion to the whole matter. So my theory is, my thinking is around the what we call this the Union Jack of the Royal Square, that it is a 30k zone. Beyond that, taking into account the Princess Street area, that zone, that should be a 40k zone until you move into the 30k zone. And that should be a universal application across all those regions. Now, what we're doing is avoiding the potentials for the bypass. That needs to be treated separately, but those zones within that should be within the same speeds. And that gives you general and universal message to everybody. The other thing that I'll talk about is that we do have some interesting locations, and Jellicoe Street is one. I'm very familiar with that. Jellicoe presents itself as a unique location because it's coming from a high-speed zone into lower speed zones with widening roads giving a mixed message. So one thing I have put into this is that there is a question mark that we can't do anything about slowing drivers down. How do we slow drivers down? It's not the responsibility, but I think we can introduce a number of procedures that might help slow those things down. So when you come into a township, typically they use what we call a threshold sign. The threshold, the threshold sign is designed to say, welcome to Martinborough, but also provide a narrowing effect, which implies you need to slow down. And most people do, because the narrowing effect means you haven't got that same space. So I think we need to look at how we treat that. We need to treat that into the entrances we have to Martinborough all across the board and treat them similarly to what we do there. There are some other things that we will talk about, and I'll bring them up more in the case of the community board. But I think, again, one of the things that we have to do in looking at this area is the process or the way we live our life here, which is becoming a tourist destination, if it's not already named a tourist destination. And we have some areas where we have hospitality, great. We have wineries to sample, great. We have people on bikes, great, but they're in conflict with drivers. And that's a very serious issue that we're going to have. Now, I know this through history, that things don't get done because they get pushed out for whatever reason until there is a serious accident or death. And then there is a major change coming. So I just suggest we need to look at what we do with these changes and make sure we take them into consideration. So I'm talking about the back street steps, the Hirangarua, and that street there, which has multiple speed zones along, and also has a predominance of cyclists wobbling all over the place. In my presentation from the community board, I'll tell you what we think about that, but that is an area that is a great conflict. Now, we do treat that currently in a way that I think maybe needs to be considered here, and that is the bridge tells you have vulnerable road users and a fluorescent yellow-green sign saying do 40k when they're present. And I think that's something we need to perhaps think about in that strip, because there are businesses that need to conduct their business through the week, but then at the weekend it's probably wholly occupied by people doing their tourist activities around wineries and eateries. So maybe we need to consider that needs to be a process we approach. So maybe we do it for weekends and holidays, that you say this is a 40K zone when people are present on cycles. And that's something I don't think would be a huge expense, but would allow you to develop a two-tiered system that during the working day, we know that the people that have businesses approaching that don't want to be closed down to 30Ks or 40Ks, they want to be able to use the right speed. But at the same time, when it's in a more social activity, you need to change the way it goes through. So the other thing that I'd like to express in this one is that we do have these other options, and NZTA has a toolbox of options you can use to change the behaviour of drivers through activities like
excuse me, Storm, that's your 5 minutes.
Okay.
So what we'll now move on to is your presentation on behalf of the board.
Right.
And again, you get 5 minutes. So go for it.
Mate,
So-
can I just ask him, that was a little bit bigger of a submission. Are we able to get a copy of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. It's in the pack.
Yeah.
That whole one. Oh, what do you, okay, I think you just probably fleshed it out a little bit more, maybe.
Okay, Storm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one
And again, so look,
submission.
so I won't go over the same area, but what I'm going to delve into in this one more on the committee board is that we are concerned, particularly with the rural schools. Differently, where I think we need to go back to a process of thinking of the same. So if we have a 30K zone in the school in town, rural should be the same. And that needs to be thought about how you approach those, because you'll be approaching them at higher speeds. But I do think they need to be treated the same. So that's the first major consideration we'd like you to think about. That if you have a 30K around schools and like areas, that you keep that universal, because that gives a single message. The second one is looking at how we can go about treating the speed zones and what we can introduce to them. So, for example, we can do treatments that make interactions more obvious. So, pedestrian crossings, lighting of streets. You may say, what's this got to do with speed? Well, it's got everything to do with speed, because if you can't see somebody, you don't know they're there. So we don't enhance the pedestrian side of what we're doing. And what we're trying to do here is expand this township into a friendly, tourist-friendly operation. And so you need to make sure that they feel safe in what they're doing. So speed will be governed by what you can do, but it also allows people to act on their own rights, and they don't necessarily take any notice of speed. Putting speed signs up is a good thing, but a lot of drivers don't take any notice of them. The universal reaction is that if a guy in front's going 70, I'm happy doing 70. The other thing that I think we need to look at is trying to get some universal actions around what we do to change the behaviours of people. So I looked at the presentation and the speed management proposal, but I asked the question, where is it stated or provided information that changing a speed sign changes behaviour? I haven't seen any research, and I don't know, I have a background in this, I don't know any research that confirms changing a speed sign changes behaviour. So I think whatever we do, and this is a generalisation, whatever we do has to be universal. So when we put something in, we need to change it. So changing the speed zone needs to have something else in play with it. Now, it could be engaging with the police to occupy the land in associated areas while the change takes place, because that's always a good way to get people to sharpen their activity up. But it only lasts as long as it's there. You can do speed humps, but they're expensive, but they may be necessary for a period of time until you get the message through that this is a changed process, change speed. And once people get reinforced with that, they tend to comply. And so I think we need to look at not just doing the speed zone change, but doing something else in conjunction that makes it safer. So the final point I'd make to this is that I would like to think, from the community board's sake, that we will look seriously at providing cycleways, cycle paths down some of these conflicting roads we have in this area. Because that would then remove the people mostly from the street, taking the sign out of the road. So then the speed becomes less imperative, but it does still have a factor, but at least you're moving them off that place. So what we'd like to see is, as a tourist destination, we'd like to give people safe passage that they can ride around on their bikes or walk around without crossing the road.
Okay, thank you. So we have time spare, so we'll take questions.
Yeah, I've just got one. Thanks, Dawn. Just had a look at both the submissions there as well. Just that last comment you made, separate zones or separate parts.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a significant cost with that.
Appreciate that.
So my question is, the community board submission, when you put something like that up, has that gone out and been tested with the public to support that?
No, it hasn't been tested to the public, but it has been tested, not in an official manner, but it has been tested in our frequent community board, community meetings we have up to this stage every second week. So we have made it an issue that we raise with them, the feedback, but we haven't done a specific and general ask the community, is this what they want to look at? But it has been.
Okay, so you would be comfortable then, say that the public in Martinborough would support you in that, even though there's going to be a significant cost to them?
They are comfortable. I don't know that they fully understand the implications of cost. That's the thing we need to go through, but they are in favour of supporting that there should be some method of separation or protection for the vulnerable people riding around.
So test that.
Test that. Look, and I would suggest, because there's lots of things in here, you can't just go and say we're going to do stuff. You're going to have to look at things and maybe test them out. And we'd be happy on passing a community board stuff.
Okay, excuse me, Storm. So we have other people who are next. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yep, that's right. Thank you.
And we'll just take some advice from Amy.
So we have Rosie, and then we'll have Glenn,
Right.
and then we'll have.
Okay.
So they're all here.
Rosie, welcome. Well,
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us, and
Yes,
the next 5 minutes from when I push the button on here is yours. My suggestion is that you focus on the things you want us to focus on. Assume that we've read your submission so far, and if before the 5-minute bell goes, then any questions. So over to you.
Well, thank you for asking me to speak to the proposed initiative to lower speed limits on selective streets and roads in South Wairarapa. Ruamahana Roads, a combined South Wairarapa District Council initiative, has been in effect since 2019 to maximise efficiency, achieve increased regional consistency and value for money, as well as share and optimise the use of internal resources. My submission is that lowering speed limits from current levels will achieve none of the above, and in fact, apart from point 2, actually counter the stated objectives. I have 3 questions for you. What is the problem lowering speed limits will resolve? 2, is there proof that lowering speed limits will resolve this poorly defined problem? And 3, could there be other problems in the remit of the South Wairarapa District Council which are actual problems with identifiable solutions and which would provide better outcomes and value for ratepayer dollars spent? Recently, the current government has stated it is committed to tackling unsafe speeds on New Zealand roads as a way to achieve 0 road deaths. Not only is this a flawed policy, it will not work as intended. Road deaths due solely to speed are less than deaths caused by other, not wearing a seatbelt, substance abuse, road conditions, or a combination of the above. To say that speeds have to come down to reduce the road toll is incorrect. Deaths due nationwide to the role of vehicle speed as the sole cause of death has declined markedly since 1990, when it was 268, to 2018, when it was 117. Speed limits were unchanged during this period, except in Wellington, where the only thing that changed, apart from a reduction in speed limit, was an increase in carbon emissions caused by idling cars and trucks. Reducing the speed limits to annoyingly low levels on Martinborough streets and South Wairarapa roads can make no meaningful contribution to either the Ruamahanga Roads Initiative nor the Mary Poppins Plan for Zero Road Deaths nationwide. Road traffic casualties in Group B, small rural towns and roads, per 100 million vehicles travelled in 2009, and South Wairarapa urban roads numbered 28 per 100 million vehicle kilometres travelled. And on rural roads, 43 per 100 million rural vehicle kilometres travelled. In that same year, the South Wairarapa had the lowest incident of road crashes of any district in the whole country. There were no all-cause child traffic deaths in the whole of the Wairarapa between 2007 and 2016. I couldn't find any more up-to-date statistics on the Waka Kotahi site. So I asked that councillors consider how many road deaths on Regent Street near the Marae will be saved by reducing the limit to 40 kilometres per hour when drivers now use common sense and drive to the conditions. The only possible answer is none. While I have no difficulty lowering the speed limit to the current levels outside schools during school hours, any justification for making this a permanent reduction requires evidence that there is a problem. Statistically, there is no problem. Panic and fear-mongering are also not a justification for this initiative. Where children are killed by cars, they are most likely to be run over in their own family driveways. 4 to 5 children in New Zealand are killed tragically in their own driveways every year. This is a problem which the council could solve by mandating mirrors and barriers in every driveway, and this could be funded by taxpayers because this might actually help. Death by vehicle in New Zealand is usually a result of several factors working together to create mayhem. Forcing Martinborough ratepayers to drive around the square at 40 kilometres per hour instead of 50 kilometres per hour will do nothing to alleviate such mayhem. Unless this is a revenue generating exercise dressed up in holier than thou reduce speed and save lives clothing. Because how exactly are ridiculously low against the flow traffic speed limits to be enforced? If they're not to be enforced, then why commit scarce council funds to building speed bumps, putting up new signs, painting markers on the roads? Are these initiatives, in fact...
Excuse me, Rosie, that is your 5 minutes. So I'll just do a little check to see if there's an urgent question from anyone. There's not.
I think so. The general just.
Yeah.
And so we'll invite Glenn
You want the...
Read what you did.
to the top table. Greetings,
Especially
Glenn.
that.
And so as with our other guests, the next 5 minutes is if you finish slightly before, then there possibly will be questions.
Yeah, all right.
But, go for it.
Okay, well, my congratulations to the previous 2 speakers. I agree with most of what they've said. And my first comment is that this report, although published with good intent, is a very good example of setting parameters for what you want to hear while ignoring all else and giving little or no encouragement to submit alternative suggestions. Whilst all reasoning for change is supposedly based on safety, it is primarily based on the safety of car passengers cocooned in their steel box. Nowhere in this review do I denote any reference to exposed people on steel frames, namely bicycles. During weekends especially, there can be over 600 bicycles in and around Martinborough enjoying our unique wine village. Consider that our bicycle hire outlets in Kitchener Street alone contribute that number, and it doesn't include crocodiles and bicycles supplied with accommodations or visitors who bring their own. So the number can be a lot greater. Having visited the largest hire facility, it is obvious that your consultants, Tonkin and Taylor, only provided a desktop report and failed to visit and view. Living in Princess Street, we continually see close calls between vehicles and bicycles, made worse by the signs advising drivers to give bicycles 1.5 metres clearance, which is an invitation to cross the centre line, if any, and risk a head-on collision with another vehicle. And we've seen this countless times. Let us be proactive and reduce our entire village to 50k maximum by erecting 5 large signs. Storm's already offered to pay for them.
Thank you.
Welcoming visitors to our most condensed, unique wine village in the world and ask them to respect all pedestrians, bicycles, moving objects and our environment, and take the time to enjoy what Martinborough has to offer. In other words, ask them to be polite and hopefully it'll work. Signs would be double-sided so that when people leave our village, they get a thank you and a be safe message. And I suggest 5 signs. 4 would get away with it, but 5 entries and exits into Martinborough so nobody could avoid them. Ponatahi Bridge, put it there so that you have to go from there into the village at 50k. Corner of Martins Road in Hinakura, because that's coming in from the back blocks. Also too, you might think Martins Road, which is now 100k, is too slow at 50, but remember, the run holder opens shortly. It sits on a very tight 45k corner. It will have more and more bikes along there, and taking into account that you've got the likes of Poppies, Luna, Moy Hall, all along there with their parking and their thing. 100 is far too much along there. The other sign, if we wanted it, is Shooting Butts Road and Todd's Road, Jellicoe Street before Ferry Road, and Kitchener Street before Palliser. That would cover the whole thing. In conclusion, I feel that this suggestion promotes both safety for all and promotes the unique nature of Martinborough, the most unique wine village in the world. Thank you for your consideration in this matter, and I would like to leave with a thought. Why is my council doing the survey, which is only emphasising a policy that is never going to work, as Rhodey alluded to, Road to Zero, which is Labor Green policy, and we're paying for it? Why is that? Because as a ratepayer, we can't afford our rates, you know that, and yet we are being lumbered with a cost which theoretically none of us voted you in to do on behalf of the Labor government. So I'd like to know how much it was.
We could give you an answer, but it might be more useful to offer it up for questions so that people can discuss anything they might want. No.
I think I understood the gist of what you were saying.
Question from Councillor Clement.
Yeah, Clem, what about variable speeds around drop-off and pick-up times for schools? What's your view on that?
That could be worked into the whole scheme, but the thing is, if we said coming in, you can still isolate the square if you wish.
I'll talk about the schools.
The schools, that's fine. There's only 1 or 2 if you want to take the kindies, etc. But 50, that's a daytime thing, as I say, between 8 and 9 and 3 and half past.
So you'd be comfortable with it?
They can be isolated.
Yeah, okay.
All I'm saying is that if we had 1 speed overall for the village, it encouraged and promoted the fact that it is unique, take your time, be safe, enjoy it, it would be easily enforceable, because as of now, we have areas that go from 100 into 50, from 50 into 70, from 70 into 50. It's all over the place. And there are not enough signs there that if a traffic cop gave me a ticket, I would almost bet that I could get off of it. because the signs are not frequent enough that I can say hand on heart that I saw the sign and I knew the speed limit. Can't. You know, going down Hinakura Road and not Hinakura, down the back by the cemetery.
Yeah.
You're doing 100k. You turn into Todd Road. You're still doing 100k and yet you had a 50 thing. Regent Street's even worse. Nova Centre line, 100k. Nuts.
Okay, look, thanks very much, Glenn. We appreciate your time and we'll take your submission seriously. Sure. So the next person is Jamie Burns. So welcome, Jamie. Thank you for joining us. I'm the Mayor, Martin Connolly. I'm joined by Councillor Plimmer, Councillor Gray, Councillor Maynard, and the next 5 minutes is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm taking our submission from our company's point of view. This proposal would have an incredibly negative effect on our business. I'm one of the owner directors of JR's Orchard in Papawai Greytown. We're a family-owned business. We're 127 hectares and we currently employ 26 full-time staff and go to 142 with seasonal staff. So we consider ourselves a large South Wairarapa District South Wairarapa District employer. Our turnover is in excess of $6 million and we export all our product overseas. We're approximately 4.4 kilometres from the Challenge service station in Greytown, and we're approximately 89 kilometres away from Centreport in Wellington, where we export all our products through. The recent change in speed limits between Greytown to Featherston have added in approximately 15 minutes to each way of the journey. So that's 90 minutes each day. Our trucks are actually being slowed down and penalised for with the reduced speed limit. This means to say that we can actually export less product on a daily basis. And to do that, to keep the production up, we've been incurred a 22% increase in freight costs because we just can't get the same volume of containers across the hill due to the time difference it's taking now. In relationship to our staff, due to the roadworks between Marston and the reduced speed limits, we have a bus that brings our staff down from Masterton each day to work out of the orchard and takes them home each night. Due to the speed limits and the roadworks, the bus now left 20 minutes early this season to get the staff there. So it's 40 minutes each day the staff are actually getting longer to work. And over a 6-day period, that's 4 hours they're away from their family that they were never away from before. We're now finding that a lot of staff from Masterton and Carterton are not wanting to work in the South Wairarapa due to the fact of the time it takes them to get to work, because it's just so much slower. This is having a negative impact on our staff's morale and their well-being. We live at Papawai and we're 100k from Greytown once you get through there. If you reduce us down to 50k or 60k, you're going to add extra time to our work travel time. And in the middle of Papawai, we've all been, I'm sure you've all been to Papawai, being 30k when the Mariah is having a function on is not existent. It's under 5k, exactly where the Mariah is. Now, I'm not saying all Mariahs are going to be affected by a reduced speed, but in our case, making us 30k for the whole of Papawai is going to have a detrimental effect on the community. Definitely outside the Mariah, but the whole of Papawai doesn't need to go to 30k. Leaving us back at 50k down our part of the road would be fine. I feel that a lot of people in Wairarapa talk about how long it takes to get places and not the distance. The distance to Marston hasn't got any smaller or less, but everybody now is talking about the downside and negativity of the time it takes us to get around the Wairarapa. So if the council supports the decision to reduce the speed limit, it's going to have a negative effect on our business.
Oh, thank you very much. So we have time, therefore we have time for questions.
We've already heard from someone else who also living in Papawai and understanding, and I know how busy that marae is as well. But they don't always have things on. Normally tell when things are on. Absolutely. Right. So you kind of know to slow it down. So with regards to signage, is it better to have signage letting people know that around this corner is a marae? Because I'm actually thinking of other maraes like Koinui, that's also on 100K. But so people are aware, because when they come around and then they see that there's cars there, they'll know to slow down as well, because we are human. So our brains
On a
to work.
50K line. We're actually 50K in Papua.
In Papua in general, yeah.
So you slow down before the marae from 100K down to 50K. There's signage before you get down the end of the road where they're saying children's zones. There's a sign on the corner with children. There's a 50K sign. So there's two 50K signs actually before you get to the marae. And there's a 50K sign down our end of the road as well, down by the Irapa. So you know if you're coming from the orchard, because we're dead end road.
Yes, right.
So do you live on Car Road?
No, I live in Greeks Lane. So I live on the orchard.
Yeah, I understand. Can I just do a double check? You said you're, I think, 89K from the Wellington Port. And what's that, what's the time taken increased by?
It's taken an extra 15 minutes each way. So we're half an hour extra a day. So with 3 containers going across, we used to be able to do 4 containers in a day on one truck to the Port of Wellington. Now we can only do 3 because we've been reduced because of the speed limit.
Yeah. Councillor.
I think Alistair was-
It's Papua Road, it's quite a narrow road, and with the trucks both ways, we hear a lot around the council about speed of the trucks, but not so much yours, but Fulton Hogan's and things carting out of the river and so on. Do you consider it a safe road to have 2 trucks going in and out of town, passing on that road at 100 k's?
Absolutely. I think your bridge into Martinborough, I'm nervous with a truck on that, and the Papua Road is complete. I mean, Car Road is revolting at the moment, but Papua Road is a nice, decent road. It's a good road. The council recently tar sealed it probably in the last 3 years. Papua Road, Car Road is up and down at the moment, but I see we're getting that redone, so that'd be wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much. It was great. So I suspect we might be about to hear something even a little similar. Greetings, John. Oh, even worse.
Sorry.
And the notes that I won't repeat what Jamie said.
Right. Well, look, you're most welcome.
Morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John Van Vliet. I'm the director, as Jamie is, of JR's Orchard. And yeah, I'm very upset about this proposal about reducing the speed. I also personally own a section at Tar White. Haven't built a house on the year because I can't afford it, but I own a section there, and I feel that I spent 20 years in the fire service in Wellington, and I think these speed limits are going to actually cause more deaths than any saving of deaths, because people that go 30 kilometres an hour are only going to attract people that want to overtake them and cause risks. And I feel that the fatalities are going to double, and if this is allowed to continue. And I speak with quite good evidence. I was actually only just a little while ago in Villa Street in Masterton, and 3 off-road bikes passed me doing 100 kilometres an hour. And, you know, it just tells you what's going on around here. It's crazy. And that was absolutely crazy to see. So I thought I'd mention it. But I feel that the time to get to Tar White's going to take 2 hours instead of 1 hour. And if you're looking at it for all farmers, how are they going to pay for their fertiliser bill if it's going to double? You know, and I don't have a farm out there, but I surely wouldn't want one after this. I think the government, central government, needs to be told that we don't want it. I think we're not going to have it, and we're going to vote against it, and we're not going to do it. And I think the council needs to say that clearly. Forget it, we're not doing it. I think I've heard the same advice coming from the Cardigan Council. They're opposed to it totally. And I think we need to grow some, you know what, and say to the government, we're not doing it. I was actually at council, the lobby a month ago, where Mike Butterick spoke, and he brought down the National Party Minister of Transport. He said they're going to reverse it and go back to the status quo of 100 k's and so on. He's not in power yet, but hopefully maybe. But I think now, in the meantime, everyone should be quite resolute and say, we don't want it, we're not going to do it, and that's all there is to it. Having said that, the Rimutaka Hill Road is 100 k's still now, which is damn stupid. And there's been a fatality on there since this has been introduced. There's been a fatality in Gladstone, 1 car fatality, not another car. And that was a driver issue, you know. So sadly, I feel that the stretches out to Tail White, they need to be reduced in speed, and the Rimutaka Hill Road. But I think the rest can be left quite safely.
Well, as you know, the Rimutaka Hill Road is not part of our.
No, it's not bad.
Would you like to elaborate on what you think should be happening at Te Waiti, please?
And Tail White.
Te Waiti.
Te Waiti, sorry, say it differently. Well, I think there was a function out there recently that about 3,000 cars went to. And I think that should be stopped because the road's not able to sustain it sensibly. And I was surprised there was no accident on the road with the amount of traffic that I saw going out there. But I think, you know, you have to reduce the speed on 3 areas on that road because it's not safe to go 100. Even the locals have put on the 100K sign, yeah, right, you know, yeah, right. I mean, no one in their right mind should go that speed through those 3 areas.
Would you like to tell us what the 3 areas are?
Well, you just come off the tar seal, about half a K half, that goes over that high bit that goes round. Very, very dangerous stretch. It's probably definitely a 30 kilometre or 50 kilometre maximum. And then you got the other bit that when you come around the corner, just going down to, so there's a bit in between that where the high, it goes high and there's more pine trees and it's very unsafe there. There's 3 areas that are in total, you know, I have to go and show you them exactly, but 3 areas that I would say 50K zones would be acceptable to most people. And I think 3,000 cars to go out for a weekend bash out there is all right for the organisers, but the road can't sustain it. You know, and I don't think that the ratepayers should sustain such a cost. I also know that the roads everywhere aren't getting done properly. The backside of our orchard is on Heckler's Road, hasn't been graded or serviced for a year and more. In fact, I spoke to Higgins about it the other day, and the guy's here very apologetic. We can't get our big grader down there. I was saying we personally corrected some of the faults on it ourselves at my company's expense. So they haven't serviced it for a year. I know Parr Road's going to get tar sealed right now because that job's been done and they marked it out the other day. And that's going to be done in the next 3 months. This is the reseal after the sewer works were done.
Yeah.
And so they were there this morning with their brush rollers cleaning up the sides ready for a tar overseal. But that's the big issue really is the speed in the whole district.
So that ding dong was my watch telling me that
Yeah, I know.
5 minutes are up.
Yeah.
So thanks very much. And we appreciate you coming in and taking the detours.
May I ask something just really quickly? Thank you very much for coming in, obviously. But I just wanted to check with you, but rather than changing the speed limit on the way out to Tail White, what about the signs? Like having the signs there, you know, that
Chevron signs.
yeah, Chevron signs, we know what they're called now because this was something else that was actually brought up because sometimes I just feel like it's the signage that's actually lacking, not anything else. It's understanding, you know, having the signs there that say it's going to be 25 when you're going around this corner, and it's going to be, you know, and you're coming up to hill, you know, it's going to go like that. So
Personally, think no, because I mean the locals all know the road. They know.
they do, but like you said, this wasn't locals going out there, and I mean I'm not talking about that many vehicles, of course, but just people who are heading out there to the coastline that maybe don't know that road and things like that. Do you believe that lowering the speed is a better option than
Just for those sections, I do.
you do, rather than
I
having
do
signage?
think so, just, and rather than litter of the signs, I think just those 3 areas, say down to 50K. A lot of the tourists that go out there are actually quite sensible. There's just the yobbos that I struck in Villa Street 5 months ago and the ones that aren't sensible. And no matter what signage you put up, isn't going to stop them.
No.
So the signage isn't the issue, it's the yobbos, and the good people are fine. They're perfectly fine. And the road's as good as it can be, given the money we've got, the council have got to spend on it, you know. Understand that. I just feel that this whole thing of what the government are trying to do is not actually making more costs on council, making everyone more agitated than what they already are. And I reckon they'll double the deaths on the roads just because the yobbos will overtake.
Okay, look, thanks very much, John, and we appreciate your contribution that we've taken
Thank you.
seriously. I'm just about to take some advice from,
We've reached the end here,
right,
so we've got to, we were gonna wait for lunch at 12.
okay, so we're
So
about
early.
20 minutes in
Yeah, we're
advance of where we plan to be at this stage. So
Feeding through.
my suggestion would be that we take an adjournment, and there's probably no point in returning until 12:30, which is when our next guest is coming. So possibly a longer lunch than we might plan.
Great.
So